Darkness Dwells is brought to you by Crystal Lake Publishing. Go to crystallakepub.com and go check out what they've got going. They've been publishing since 2012, and they are only getting bigger. They have published the likes of Ramsey Campbell, Mercedes Yardley, and Clive Barker, amongst many more. We're also supported by audible.com. Go to audibletrial.com/darknessdwells and pick out any book that you want when you sign up for a free trial membership. And that trial lasts for 1 month and you get any book you want for free. So go and check that out. On this episode of Darkness Dwells, Michael and I talk with Doungjai Gam about her collection, Glass Slipper Dreams Shattered, along with writing with her boyfriend Ed Kurtz, conferences and Necon, and the amount of Necon she's been to, letting stories percolate for long periods of time in your brain, and how to put emotions into shorter pieces of literature, among many other things. Michael and I then discussed the remake of Suspiria, and we compare it to the original Suspiria, so stay tuned. Welcome to the Darkness Dwells podcast, episode 111. I am Jason White.
I'm Michael Schutz.
And
together we're Darkness Dwells.
Yeah, we dwell in darkness over here. This week we have...
I'm dwelling in darkness today.
Oh, are you?
It's ugly and raining.
Oh, it's ugly and raining, hey?
Yes.
Is it cold?
Perfect day for horror movies and writing.
Is it cold, too?
It is cold. Yeah. It is cold.
It's freezing here.
Cold.
And we just had a really bad snowstorm. And so that was fun. At least the power stayed on, so that's cool.
That's nasty when it goes out.
It is. Speaking of that, you know what? I had a situation last week. It was like the coldest night of the year. It's minus 22 Celsius, which is, I don't know what that is. It's like minus 10, I think, Fahrenheit. And the power went out all night. It was horrible.
Oh my god. I hope you have enough blankets. Oh, you're pretty... Man.
We were cold. It got cold real quick, let me tell you.
Wow.
All right, so this week we have a special guest with Doungjai Gam. And we're going to be discussing the remake of the Suspiria film. Now, before we get into that, how you doing, Michael? How you keeping keeping with the editing up, or are you writing something?
Both. I am actually splitting my schedule right now, writing something original the first half of my day, and then really zooming through my third from the last edit of Plank Children.
Cool.
So I'm doing both, and it feels good.
You've been working on Plank Children for so long now. It's got to be like
part
of your life, like a major part of your life. Well, that's awesome. Now, before we get into any of the show, there's we got a comment on Twitter that I wanted to bring up before we continue. It was by I don't know how to pronounce his name. I hope I pronounce it correctly. Mons Weislander, I think. Sorry if I butchered your name. But I asked him if I could quote his tweet on the show, and he said, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." So he said, "Don't miss out on the Darkness Dwells podcast. It's one of the best out there. Start with the Raznik Tem interview." So thank you very much for the shout out, Mons. And we hope to keep you entertained.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for commenting.
Yes. We've had comments here and there, but they're mostly from people we know. All right, so yeah, thanks very much, Mans. And so if you guys want to give us a shout out or just comment to us, you can send us an email. You can give us a review, and we will read it on the show. And so there we go. Do you think you're ready, Michael, to start this one?
Let's get at it.
Let's do it.
Do it.
All right, welcome back, everyone. This week we have a really special, exciting guest, Doungjai Gam. Her short fiction has appeared in Lamplight, Distant Dying Embers, Wicked Haunted, the Necon Best of Flash Fiction Anthology Series, Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, and Lost Highways by Crystal Lake Publishing. The latter story she wrote with Ed Kurtz. Glass Slipper Dreams Shattered is her first collection. Born in Thailand, she currently resides in Connecticut. Welcome to the show, Doungjai.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. We're glad to have you.
So your collection, Glass Slipper Dreams Shattered, came out last year. I believe it was on August the 1st. Is this indeed your first collection?
It is, yeah. And it took me forever to get it put together.
This next question might seem a little weird, but having a release date seems like it would be a really exciting event. But I've known myself and other writers to feel a weird sort of emptiness. So I was wondering if, it being your first release date, if you were really excited on that day, or did you feel that strange sort of emptiness?
I was pretty excited. I felt weird afterwards. In the following couple of months, because people were writing reviews and giving me praise and stuff, and it felt weird, and I'm still not used to it, and I don't know, I just kind of feel like I don't deserve this. So it's just been, I've been all over the place.
Yeah, I bet you it's a real emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
Apocrypha released the book. How did you come to end up working with them?
So I had met Jacob Haddon, who he runs Apocrypha. I had met him at a little convention that sadly is no longer called Necon, which was up in New Hampshire, and I had gone to a panel that he was on about what editors are looking for, and he runs Lamplight, and I had been wanting to submit to them, so I went to the convention and saw him around here and there, and was too chicken shit to go up to him and introduce myself. And then I like friended him after the fact on Facebook, and I was just like, hey, I was at your panel and stuff, and I ended up subbing to him for a Lamplight, and I got in, and that was my first sale. And at the following Anthicon, which was about a year and a half later, we were chit-chatting in the bar, and it happened to be my birthday, and he had said, I wanted to see if you were interested in, maybe doing a collection with us. And I was just like, yeah, this is the best birthday gift ever.
Yeah.
So, what was your Lamplight story?
It's called What Remains. It's in the collection.
Okay.
What's your experience been like working with Apocrypha?
They're really great to work with. Jacob is awesome. I can't say enough good things about him, and he's got the patience of a saint, let me tell you. Because let me see here, it was June 2015 when he first approached me about this, and the collection didn't come out till 2018, and there was I just had a lot of personal shit going on in that 3-year span there that just kind of, we kept pushing the date back and pushing it back, and I was just like, dude, I'm sorry. He's just like, it's okay. We just want to put the best collection out. So, don't worry about it.
Well, I would say it was a success because the stories in Glass Slipper Dreams Shattered are, each story has a little gut punch of its own. All the stories tell of very real situations, or at least moments of clarity in terrible moments within life. Now, I was wondering, do you write every day?
Nope, not at all, and I probably should be, but I don't.
And how do you keep up that level of emotion in your stories? If it takes you a few days to get back into it.
Well, I mean, some of the ones, some of the shorter ones, no, actually, even those, it's even the smaller, like 100-piece ones, still would take anywhere between a week or two. I mean, I kind of have to just spit out that rough draft and then just keep going back and revising until I just get sick of it. But it's not always easy to keep that emotion level, like, high.
Yeah. I imagine. Now, was this a lot of these stories were published previously, but did you write a lot of stories original to the collection?
Yeah, it's probably, I think it was like a 40-60 split, with, I think, maybe about 60% of it being new and original stuff. Reading
through the stories, most of them are flash fiction sprinkled with a lot of poetry throughout. And in fact, I noticed that the flash fiction itself, they also read like poetry. I was wondering, how is it you're able to fit in so much emotion with less words? Now, I asked this for a reason, because once I was talking with Mercedes Yardley on the show here, and I was telling her of my struggles, because I can't write flash fiction, and I don't know why. And I was telling her that, and she was like, "Oh, Jason, I don't believe you."
It takes a lot of practice. The way that I had gotten my start with flash fiction was that when Necon ebooks started up in 2010, they had this monthly flash fiction contest on their website, and you had to do 100 words or less. They usually gave you a subject to work with, and I had subbed a story in 2010, which didn't get in. It's in the collection. So it did get published after all. And it took me a few tries until the first one that I won in 2011, which was I believe it's the opening story. Yes, the opening story in my collection, I'll Make You Famous. But then after that, I didn't have another win until the following year. And, I tried, but yeah, it's just a matter of trying to find, with flash fiction, it's finding that right moment to concentrate on, the right words that fit. And once I finally got the hang of it, it's still, I think I won one in 2012, and then it was like another year. And then that's when I kind of started up getting, placing in these contests like maybe 4 or 5 times a year or something. So I finally found, that right mix.
And at the end of the collection, you include some pieces about how each story came to be. I have to admit, I love those. That's one of my favorite parts of Stephen King collections. Do you enjoy reading those as well? What prompted you to include those?
Yeah, it's definitely a thing that I love reading. Like just where other writers get their inspiration from, and so I mean, I didn't do one for everything because there's like 42 pieces in this collection, and at the rate I was going, it was going to end up being longer than the actual stories. So I just and some of them, quite frankly, I just don't remember where the inspiration had come from. So I just kind of did that. But yeah, I love I love reading about that sort of, that behind the scenes stuff. How did it happen and how it came to be and whatnot.
I'm a big fan of that as well. Now, in the springtime, I believe it is, I don't have the exact date, but you're releasing, now I love this title, Watch the Whole Goddamn Thing Burn. You're releasing that with Nightscape Press. Now, I'm really looking forward to this. Can you tell us a little bit about what this is about?
Sure. It's something I still need to kind of get finished up. We don't have an exact release date yet. We are looking at late spring, so I'm guessing probably middle to end of May, maybe. It's part of Nightscape Press's charitable chapbooks line. So there's a three-way split between the author, the press, and the charity of the author's choice. And I decided to go with Trans Lifeline because I've got a few friends in the horror community who are trans, and I know of at least one friend of mine who has benefited from Trans Lifeline, and I just wanted to find a way I just wanted to help out somehow, because I don't really need to go into the state of the U.S. right now and how bad things are down here, and it hurts me that like so many of my friends are just worried about their safety and their own well-being, and I just wish it wasn't like that, but there's just so much fucking hatred out there, man. I just want to be able to help somehow.
Yes, there is a lot of hatred.
That's fantastic.
That's really awesome.
I love that. I love that.
But the story itself is it's about a Thai American girl. Her name is Sammy, and she's going through a lot of shit. She's had a tragedy in the family, and she's trying to help her mom, who's kind of falling apart. She's got this crazy ex-boyfriend, and I'm trying to think of like how else to describe it without like giving everything away. But as the title hints at, there's going to be a couple of fires. It's dark. I mean, hell, even I had Ed read it, and he was just like, "That's pretty fucking dark." And for him to say that.
And you were born in Thailand yourself, is that right?
Yes.
Did you live there for long before coming over to us?
Not long enough. I was only 8 months old, and my mom was 28 when we came here. So I'm pretty Americanized, but I kind of feel sometimes like I've kind of got like one foot in like each culture, and sometimes I don't feel like I quite belong in either one. It's a really weird thing.
Did you read much as a kid?
Oh yeah, I read an awful lot. I know I started reading, I think, fairly early, but I was always, begging my parents, let's go to the library, or when they had the Scholastic book fairs, I would be like, okay, I want all these books here, and just always. Although I'm finding that I have a harder time these days, like just catching up on reading.
Who were your influences back then?
Back then, definitely Stephen King, Coots also, V.C. Andrews is another one. They kind of warped my mind at a rather early age, and
they did mine too.
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
They did mine too.
And then I discovered Robert R. McCammon. I found a copy of mine, which was really freaking excellent, and that kind of opened my mind to realize that there's so much more to horror than King and Kuntz, and then I just started, trying to dig deeper and just find other people. And then as I got older, one of my other big influences was my mentor, Thomas Tessier. I worked with him for a little while. We were 411 operators, and I did that thing that I don't know that is really okay to do. I kind of like slipped in this little folder of my writing, and I was like, is this okay? Like, do you like this? Is it any good? But he saw something there, and he's been, really good to me.
That's awesome. Do you find that you're still being influenced by writers, or do you think that the influence cuts off at a certain age? I ask this because a lot of people seem to think that you can only be influenced in your childhood, and at least that's the impression I get a lot of the time when I hear people talk about their influences.
I don't think it would be really... I don't know. It doesn't seem to me like it's something that you would just limit to childhood. I mean, like I said, there was, those influence I had when I was younger, and then as I got older, I kind of branched out and reading different things that kind of influenced me in different ways. Like one of my other influences from years ago is Sherman Alexie, and he's definitely not a horror writer, but he has this way of like, you could read like a page of his, a paragraph of his, and you could start off laughing, and then you're just like in tears by the end of it, and it's just just that range of emotion. And I tried to learn from that, and then and who else? Haruki Murakami, Stuart Onan, how he writes beautifully about just like everyday people and things that are just kind of, might just seem mundane, but he really just brings wonderful life to it. And I'm like trying to peek out at the library in the living room to see like, wow, oh gosh, and Jack Ketchum.
Oh
yes,
yeah.
God, wonderful, and just dearly missed. And like, I mean, just how he just writes like, all those extreme situations, but his characters have heart, and you're rooting for them. And The Girl Next Door, Jesus, that was just devastating. When I got to that scene in the book, you probably know which scene. I don't want to know which one, but I got so mad I damn near threw the book across the room.
That book was really, really hard for me to read. Like, I almost didn't finish it so many times, but I did end up finishing it, and it's definitely a book I won't return to. Even though I loved it, it was like,
yeah, I don't know if I can reread that one.
It'd be like torturing myself.
Every page was like a door in the haunted house that you didn't want to open, but yet you were so curious to see what was behind it, you couldn't help it. That's what it was like for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I know that music has had a huge influence on your writing as well. I was wondering what bands have influenced you in the past, and what are you listening to today?
Pearl Jam.
Yes, Pearl Jam.
Which, I mean, I guess if you've seen my Facebook page, that's probably obvious. That they've been a huge influence on me from way back.
They're very prolific too, and they've released I don't know how many albums, but I was a big fan. I still am a big fan of them. I haven't listened to them all that much recently. Do you still listen to them a lot?
Oh yeah, we just saw them for 2 nights at Fenway Park last year, and they are fucking amazing live. They don't put the same show on twice.
Does Eddie Vedder still like climb posts and everything? And...
No, he really doesn't anymore. I'm almost disappointed in a way because I had missed out on all that stuff back when I was a teenager. I didn't see them for the first time until I think I was in college, and he didn't even really do it then either. And that was back in like '96 when No Code came out. Well, no, actually, there was a show in 2013 where he was kind of climbing one of the light fixtures, but it was like kind of low to the stage, so I don't know if that really counts.
Do you have a favorite Pearl Jam album?
Oh, dear. That's one of those things that like changes by the day. The two that just popped into my head at the moment were No Code and Yield. And I know No Code's gotten a lot of hatred, especially when it came out, because that was their way of, alienating from, all the like dude bros and stuff that were like getting into their music and whatnot. And it took me a while to come around to that album, but I'm really fond of it now.
I love No Code. That's one of my favorites, honestly. That and 10.
Oh God, yes, 10. 10 is perfect. I've gone through, I think, at least 4 copies on cassette, 2 or 3 on CD.
Well, even burning out your CDs.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's good.
Burning out, or at least one of them had been stolen. I don't know.
So what other bands do you listen to?
Some others that have kind of influenced into my writing over the years has been Tori Amos, Toad the Wet Sprocket, and then Glenn Phillips, the singer for Toad, his solo work. Travis, they're a band from Scotland. I adore them, and they're on my list of bands I need to see live. And I'll probably get some hate for this, but I kind of like Coldplay. I don't have much shame in admitting that.
Judgment here.
No judgment.
I'm sorry?
No judgment here. It's a safe zone.
And then the other one that I've really, really been obsessed with for the last year or so is a band called Keane from the south of England. And I've been seeing that they are in the studio now after a hiatus of a few years, and they're talking about a tour. So that's another one I'm really hoping that they come over to the States, because I somehow missed that they had an album in 2012 called Strangeland. So I looked it up and then got obsessed, and I've listened to it an awful lot. It's really good. I kind of almost want to like write a book of stories like based on the songs.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
It's so amazing. I've thought about that with some of my favorite work too. Now, what about films? Are you a big film fan, and have any of them been influences for you?
I've got a really, really horrible track record with watching movies. I'm really into all the Star Wars films. That's been my thing since I was a kid.
Music to my ears.
And as far as like a lot of the horror movies, I'm like very slow to getting to all of those. Like I had told my boyfriend that I've gotten this far in life without having seen any of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, and since October, he has managed to fix all of that.
Good job.
That's a lot of binging.
Yeah, and now I'm trying to get him to binge on Game of Thrones before it starts up again.
Cool.
Oh, I can't wait. This is going to be a good final season.
Yeah, I missed out on the last season because I haven't had cable in a couple of years. So I've actually managed to somehow navigate through social media since season 7 ended without getting any spoilers. And then a couple of weeks ago, one of my coworkers goes, "Oh, so-and-so died." And I'm like, what?
Oh, gosh, I hate that.
That's like being
like,
shot right at the end of the war.
That was a good one to hear about.
That's crazy. Have you read those books at all? The George R.R. Martin books?
I haven't. No, those books are huge and intimidating.
Oh, they are. You could kill someone with those books.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of your boyfriend, you wrote a story with Ed for the Lost Highways anthology, Crossroads of Opportunity. Now, I was wondering, how did you and Ed share the writing responsibilities for that?
It was him pushing me a lot to do my share of the writing. That sounds bad. So he had asked me if I wanted to collaborate on a story with him, and I was like, okay, sure, I'll give it a shot, because I had tried it once before and it didn't get very far. So I was a little nervous about it, especially because I think our styles are a little different. He started writing this thing and he emailed it to me, and I added a little bit, and we just kept going back and forth, and so I think he probably did a little bit more of it than I did, but I was a big stickler for details. I spent because the story takes place in God, I can't think of the town in Illinois now, but it takes place in Illinois, where there is a giant cross that you could see from the highway, and I spent a lot of time on Google Maps on that stretch of highway, just trying to get the details right.
The story itself is it's very dark and very bleak. I loved it, and it really set the mood for the rest of the anthology. Now, I was wondering, that was actually my introduction to you, actually, because I read that Lost Highways anthology. Geez, now it's my... See? I told you, we do that here, too. So I read that when the anthology first came out. I was wondering if you see because you're right, it is a bit of a split from your own voice, but I was wondering if you see your own work going this way at all.
I think so, in a way. Watch the Whole Goddamn Thing Burn is definitely, I think, pretty dark like that, or maybe a little bit darker. But I'm enjoying writing longer pieces. I mean, like in my collection, I think the longest piece was Divorce and Roadkill, and that was probably about a maybe 1,600 word story. So I'm looking forward to writing more. I've joked that one of the things that I've had to learn, or relearn rather, was kind of how to write a short story, because when I was practicing, when I was doing all those flash fiction pieces, I was just cutting down until I had like the absolute essential words and pieces that I needed. And now it's kind of like I have to unlearn that a little bit and just tell myself that, okay, it's okay to leave, these words, these phrases in here. So it's been interesting.
Now, have you collaborated with Ed on any other stories?
Not yet. I think I'd like to give it another shot. I'm definitely open to it, and I'm sure he'd be willing to do it. But I don't know. We haven't really had an idea come up yet. I'm sure it'll happen again.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier about a conference, and I know that you've been to Necon. I was wondering if you go to conferences very often.
Not well. I mean, I haven't actually gone to any outside of New England yet. I've done Necon, I think, about 10 or 11 times now, and that's my favorite. It's pretty small. They limit it to, I think, 200 people that stay at the hotel, and you see a lot of the same familiar faces every year, and it kind of feels like a family reunion, and it's really wonderful. And if you guys ever get a chance, you should totally come check it out. It's so much fun. And I think compared to other cons, it's also cheaper. Because because we had attended Stoker Con last year when it was in Providence, and that was my first Stoker Con, and that was overwhelming.
Yeah.
I'm kind of, I don't know, I don't always deal with crowds too well, and I get sensory overload, and I freak out and stuff. So, but Stoker Con, it was that ended up being pretty expensive, but because because you have to like go find meals, and everything just adds up.
Yeah.
Like with Necon, your room is covered, the food is covered for a few days, so it's not bad. And then besides that, there was Anthicon up in New Hampshire, which, like I said, sadly is no longer around. And I liked that one a lot too. But I'm hoping at some point in the future I can, broaden my horizons and get to travel around a little bit more.
Now it's February, which means that it's Women in Horror Month. And so I thought I'd like to touch upon this with you since, I have you here. I was wondering if you've ever felt like you were at a disadvantage within the writing community simply because you're a woman.
I feel like I've had, moments where maybe I haven't been taken seriously, and that's a little frustrating. But I don't know that I've really felt like a full-on disadvantage or anything. But I mean, I'm still kind of fairly new to all of this. But hopefully I will. I hate to say that I'm sure in time I will probably have some horrific story to tell, and I just really hope that it doesn't happen. But
I've heard some horrific stories, and some of them like just basic things, like you're at a convention and just say you're with your boyfriend, and they start talking to him, and they just assume that you're there with him as his girlfriend, right? And they don't think that you're a writer.
That has happened.
Yeah.
That has happened.
That's a very typical one. But I guess maybe that, I don't know. But I find it upsetting that sexism is still a serious issue, especially within the arts. This is where we're supposed to be all, we're supposed to feel empathy towards things because we write so that way so much. But it's also funny that people think that women can't write horror. I come across this all the time because I have a YouTube channel where I talk about books. The community is generally called BookTube. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but I watch a lot of videos, and I don't know how many times I've seen a video where somebody read a book, just say by Sarah Langan or someone like that, and they're like, I didn't know women wrote horror, and they're like, I'm gonna have to investigate this. I'm like, what?
Oh my God.
That's not necessarily their fault, though. So I was wondering, how do you think we can spread knowledge of women writers so that there's no longer any need for Women in Horror Month?
We just need to keep writing. We need to keep promoting each other. We need to keep building each other up. And, it kind of sucks that we have to have this, to promote that, hey, there are women here and we write horror too. But, I mean, it helps get the word out, but, maybe at some point in the future, probably after we're gone, we won't need to have it because we'll be better not represented. Good Lord. I'm not even sure if I'm making sense at this point, but I just think the key is we just need to keep writing. We just need to promote and build each other up and don't tear each other down, because I've seen that happen. I'm not even just like the guys, being all sexist, but you see it from other women too sometimes, and it's shitty.
I find it shitty when, unless it's for a really good reason, when people just decide to tear down another writer. Because I've seen it happen too, where people just suddenly attack you because you asked a question. And Michael knows about this.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, that doesn't sound good. Do I dare ask?
That's too long of a story.
It was kind of upsetting for him, but it's blown over. It's in the past now. But, that tends to happen, and it's unfortunate. I mean, sometimes there is a good reason for it, I think. Like if somebody's being racist or sexist, if they're being sexist or racist, then maybe this person needs to be taken down a peg or at least educated, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
It seems like there's people out there who just want to hate something, and then they see it, and then they're like, yes, I can focus on this, and they go after it.
Yeah.
Now, you're relatively new to the scene, as you mentioned before, but honestly, I think we're going to see a lot of big things from you. What advice would you tell other young women who want to write but might come across a discriminating situation?
Well, first of all, thank you. I mean, I hope to keep producing stuff. As far as advice, just stand up for yourself. If you see something that's just not cool going down, don't be afraid to call it out. Although I feel like sometimes maybe that's advice I should take myself, because I get nervous about speaking up about things. When you were talking before about having, kind of getting attacked sometimes for asking a question on social media, I feel like it may have happened a couple of times to me, not like, on a grand scale or anything, but, sometimes you ask something and it's like, people sort of make you feel like you should have known the answer to that or something. And so it sort of makes me a little reluctant these days to post about things. And I guess, too, maybe just, we see a lot of drama in the community. Maybe just keep an eye on it, be aware, but, don't get too caught up in it and just keep writing. That's the biggest thing. Just keep writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find myself sometimes ignoring the community because of all the drama, because I feel it's unnecessary, honestly. I don't really react well, honestly, though, to negative situations, and so I tend to shy away from them.
Yeah, I totally hear that.
All right, so...
Now, do you have anything else coming out anytime soon that you want to share with us?
There's not all that much. I do have I have a reprint that's coming out this year. The contract's been signed, but the table of contents hasn't been made public yet, so I don't think I can talk about that yet. But I'm excited about that because it's my first reprint. I mean, I've got a couple things out in submission right now. I just got invited to do to take part in an anthology, so I need to figure out what I'm doing with that. But I'm pretty excited for that. Other than that, there's not a whole lot. I'm a really, really slow writer. I don't know how you guys are with with your work. I have had this lifelong terrible habit of when I'm writing, I suddenly get this thought in my head like, oh, I need to go back and fix this, and I need to go back and fix that.
Yes.
And this one isn't right, and I have to go do it. And then sometimes I just keep doing that, and then I look at the story, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm really sick of this story, so I'm not going to deal with it anymore. And I just put it away, and And, I might look at it in another 2 months, 6 months, 3 years.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I do that a lot. Oh, God, I have short stories, honestly, I have short stories that I started, 2-3 years ago, and I still want to go finish, but they're sort of, percolating in my brain. Do you find that you do that? That you have stories percolate, deep down somewhere, and then it comes back, and you're like, oh, and you finish it?
Oh, yeah, always. I've got one that I started in late 2016, and it's one of those where every few months, I go back to it, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready. I could do something with this. And I can't. And then just a couple days ago, I was sitting at work, and all of a sudden this thought, and I was just like, oh, that's what I need to do with it. Yeah. But I need to actually just sit myself down and do it.
All right. Before we let you go, I was wondering where people can reach you online if they want to ask you questions for themselves.
I practically live on Facebook, but I'm kind of slow with accepting the friend requests. But I do have an author page on there that I update maybe once a month because I'm bad with maintenance, things like that. But that's facebook.com/Doungjai Gam books. I am on Twitter and Instagram under the handle DJI76, DJAI76. I'm rarely ever on Twitter, though. I'm trying to change that. And I have I do have a blog, but I don't remember the last time I've updated it. I think it was just before the book came out, so I should probably go and put something out over there. But I think it's doungjaigam.wordpress.com, maybe.
I'll put the link in the show notes so that people can find it.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I had a lot of fun talking with you. And do you have any more questions, Michael?
I'm just curious what your to-be-read list looks like. What do you find time to read?
There. I'm sure it's huge. Because
okay, I can focus the question. Are you looking forward to anything in 2019 specifically?
Okay. Thanks for narrowing it down because my to-be-read pile is
they're huge, aren't they?
Freaking ridiculous.
And they're like monsters, and they keep growing.
Oh God.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. What am I looking forward to? Well, I know that I know there's stuff. Why am I blanking? I'm blanking out so bad.
I put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Oh gosh, I just thought of one. There is a book, Rachel Autumn Deering and Matt Hayward are doing it, called Pestilence.
Yes.
I believe. I think that one's coming out this year. And I'm looking forward to that. I'd read Rachel's novella Husk last year, and it was really, really good. And I realize I'm probably biased for throwing this out there because it's one of Ed's books. But he's got a collection coming out next month called Blood They Brought, and other stories from Journal Stone. And I'm a little underread, I hate to say, on my boyfriend's work. So I'm looking forward to reading more. That
Wonderful.
Sounds terrible.
I'm looking forward to that collection too. Yeah, so thanks so much for coming on the show with us. And, I would like to have you on the show again sometime if you have anything you want to promote.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
All right, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Pain has a face. Allow me to show it to you. Gentlemen, I am pain.
I see dead people. Hi,
When there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
Suspiria. You know, wasn't very long ago when I heard that they were actually filming this remake, and I thought it was gonna be like a straight to video type thing, where it's just a piece of junk. You know what I mean? Like bad acting, bad everything.
Yeah,
I was
the usual kind of remake crap.
Yeah, exactly. This movie was
and it was no.
This movie was directed by Luca I'm really bad with names today. Guadagnino. Now I know I definitely butchered that. And it was written by David Kajgadnik, something like that. Anyways, it's starring Tilda Swinton. Now I don't know if you knew this, Michael, but she stars 3 roles in this film. She plays Madame Blanc.
Yeah.
As you would, because you recognize her there, right? But she also plays Dr. Klemperer, the guy who goes to investigate.
You know what? I believe that. I believe that because I have a comment about something, and that just explained it.
Yeah. And she also plays another character, which I don't really necessarily want to spoil, so I'm just going to leave that one in the open. It also stars Chloe Grace Moretz as Patricia, Dakota Johnson.
Who I did not recognize.
She's kind of her hair's different, and it's like all over her face, so you don't really see her. And then later, she just looks different for reasons. And Dakota Johnson as Susie, Angela Winkler as Miss Tanner. Now this one got me because the original Miss Tanner, she sounds exactly the same. I was like, this can't be possibly the same woman. So I looked it up, and Miss Tanner in the original movie was played by Alida Valli. Different people, but they sound a lot alike. They even look a little alike, and who knows, maybe they're related or something. But I was impressed by that. And Mia Goth, who plays Sarah, amongst many others. Now, I have a sordid sort of history with Suspiria. I had a lot of trouble getting into it the first time I saw it. I kind of hated it, to be honest with you. It was very jarring from the music score to the no plot to the weird.
Are you talking scheme. Which Suspiria are you talking about?
The first one, the one from 1977.
Yes.
So, did you have the same issue getting into that movie, or did you like it right away?
I love Suspiria. And you know that I don't watch a lot of giallo movies, but I always want to. And when I do, I like them. But Suspiria, I always loved. I love there are issues with it. There are so many issues with it, but I always liked it. I did, despite all those weird questions and nonsensical things. Like, why would somebody open up a school for dance and the occult? Like, that was the mission statement of the original school.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. For some reason, I kept going back to it. I'd watch it again and again. And then I found that, I'm like, why am I continuously watching this film? I thought it was because I was just trying to figure it out, which it was, but I guess over the interim of doing that, I found that I really, really enjoyed it, actually. I just needed multiple views, I guess. So it's like one of my favorite movies now. Now this movie, the remake, I didn't have as much trouble with it, although I find it was a really slow burn. But once things get going, man,
it was a very slow.
Yes, I found that also you had to work with this movie. This movie made you work to understand what's going on. Actually, both movies make you work, obviously, because the first one I had to watch repeatedly. And I still have questions about that one, but I love it to death. And this one makes you think. I found, like, you have to figure out what's going on. It doesn't tell you the year, but it does take place, I found out, in 1977 because of the hostage situation.
It does tell you the year right at the beginning.
Did it? I missed
it. That then.
Yeah, I must have missed
it.
But but even if it didn't, there's clues, like the hostage situation that's going on in the background, and of course the movie takes place in Berlin, and there's a lot of upheaval going on, a lot of people protesting and whatnot. Did you have much trouble getting into this movie?
No, I didn't, although I was very aware that it didn't get going as fast as the first one. Now, I'm not somebody that harps on needing a fast beginning. It was just in comparison to the 1977 one, which, Patricia is screaming and falling through the window fairly early on. This one took, I watched it, 37 minutes. But no, as far as getting into it, I was excited enough that I was okay with it.
Yeah, well, the first one starts off with the main character, Susie. She's stuck in the rain, and she gets a taxi, and as she's in the taxi, she sees that woman running through the woods, and it's a pretty strong beginning. It's very strange. It kind of draws you in. This one, I don't know. I just found that I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, okay, there's people protesting. There's this young woman going to see her therapist in the middle of all this. It makes no sense. And then there's this woman dying in a bed, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? But the movie is beautiful. It's beautifully shot. The one thing that really drew me in is, I think it was in the dying woman's house. They're showing her pantry, and it's full of stuff from 1977. It just looks marvelous. You know what I mean? And so does the psychiatrist's office. I just loved that office. It looked real.
The set design was really good.
Oh, it was.
I did,
fabulous.
As far as the look of the film, I did have a little problem, because one of the things I like about the 1977 Argento one is the coloring. Yes. I love the splashy blues and reds. And the 2018 Suspiria is that muted sort of color that is so popular still since all that post-apocalyptic movies. So I was a little disappointed in that.
Yeah.
But
actually, I had
the attention to the set design was amazing.
Yeah, I had that in my notes. Very next, actually, is that these two movies, they're both very different, both in story, because the first one doesn't actually have much of a story. It's basically about a woman who goes to a dance school that ends up to be run by witches, and then this movie actually has a bit of a storyline to it. But one of the bigger differences I found was the color schemes, as you mentioned. It's very bright, where the old one is very bright, where this one is more earthy, grays and whatnot. But the one thing I really enjoyed was the director still paid a lot of an homage to that type of cinema from where the original came from. So you get those what are they called here? The whip zooms or snap zooms, and odd camera angles. And going back to the design, there's some really weird architecture, and also some kind of weird furniture and whatnot, like that mirror with the lights around it, and it gives you sort of a sense that you're not in this world anymore. You're in some sort of fantastique world.
Yes. And what struck me, kind of along those lines, is that the director, I'm assuming the writer, but I know the director is Italian. So this isn't an American remake. It's still, you know, even though most of it's in English, it's still pretty much a foreign film, and it has that foreign feel, which I loved. Like, right off the bat, I'm like, oh, this isn't going to be a schlocky American teen flick.
Yeah.
So it had that going for it right from the start.
And like I said, the story itself is very... You got to think while you're watching this movie, or you're going to skip a beat, and then you're going to miss something, and then you're going to be lost. I was lost from the get-go, but then I watched it again, and things clicked, and I was like, oh, okay. So I've already seen it twice.
I need to see it again. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, and you probably have this in your notes, but I'll say it first. I loved that the dancing actually had something to do with the witch plot in this one. It wasn't, in the original, things are just kind of glued together. But in this one, the dancing was like the way that they cast their spells. I hope I'm not spoiling too much. But I loved that. That was so refreshing. It actually, the screenwriter took the time to actually write a narrative and have it make sense, which you and I are always talking about with all these remakes. We ask the question, why is this remake being done? And it's usually not for such a good reason as to make a more coherent movie, like Suspiria did.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is you ask a good question there. Why remake it? Like, what's the point? Especially when it's kind of a, the movie you're remaking could be considered a hot mess. You know what I mean? But he, the director, Luca, I'm not going to attempt his last name again. He brings new things to this, not just with the story, but like with the themes. There's one thing I found very interesting about this film is that I think it's a very much a feminist type of movie because first of all, there's hardly any men in it. There's a couple of men, and but you also have like your leading male role is actually played by a woman. And here, this is what I say in my notes. The new movie is very feminist, I think, in that within the story it shows women being very vicious and violent in their own surroundings without any male influence whatsoever. Therefore, this shows human cruelty as a human trait that's not lost on women. They can be just as vicious. A lot of people don't seem to understand this, which is why a lot of people have no idea that women can write horror, for example, and write it very well. Because people tend to pigeonhole women as being maternal, when people aren't thinking that they're just they're people.
That is very well said.
But having watched this movie, honestly, there's so much that I still have to figure out. How about you?
Definitely. And I have to admit, I don't like ever admitting this, but I did lose my focus during this movie, and my mind wandered. So I probably have even more questions than you. So I definitely I need to see it again. Because I love that it had the modern grittiness. Like a lot of the blood and gore and sort of like the dreamlike flashes, they were mesmerizing.
Yeah.
They were really mesmerizing. And so I loved that. I loved the feel of this movie, even though I was distracted. I don't know if that's the fault of the movie. It did seem like an awful slow burn and like maybe a half hour too long, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I totally agree with that, honestly. Especially
and it's long.
Yeah, especially through my first viewing, it's 2.5 hours, right? There's hardly any horror films out there that are 2.5 hours, because horror, as we often say, and as writers, horror often works better in shorter form, and that definitely works for movies. My mind wandered as well through the first, because it made me confront it, or have to confront it, and I wasn't really expecting that. I don't know why. It's a Suspiria film, right? But I was expecting schlock, I guess. I don't know, and it made me think, so I had to watch it twice. And the second time through, I see why it's as long as it is, but I still don't think it needs to be as long as that. You know what I mean? Like, every scene in the movie actually has a point to it, and it's drawn out if you pay attention, and you can see why that scene's there. There's nothing that's actually, I would say, fat that's not needed. But you could probably still cut it down a bit. I don't know. I don't know if that would hurt the storytelling at all or not. But yeah, while you're watching it the first time, you're like, could it pick up just a little bit? But then about halfway to somewhere near the end, it does start picking up, and it doesn't really stop. It just goes batshit crazy. That ending.
It's absolutely true.
That
when that happened, then I was like, oh, why didn't I pay more attention?
Yeah, that ending is just like...
This is really good.
And actually, I have a bit of a complaint about the ending, too. I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a part where... a lot of people are dying, let's just say that. And it seemed a little bit video game-ish to me, mostly because of the CGI and just how fast it suddenly was going. Like, the whole movie is going at a snail's pace, and then suddenly everyone's heads are exploding, basically. And it just didn't seem real within the context of the rest of the film. It kind of pulled me out from where I was at originally. What did you think of that part? I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
I do, and you're absolutely right. I like how you said that, because it just suddenly cranks up into another gear. And of course, I liked that. And that's definitely why I have to go back,
Yeah, because the build-up...
Because
And,
yeah.
It brings oh, man, I just want to spoil that. Alright, so we're at the end of this. If you guys just want to stop listening now, then by all means, go watch the movie and come back. But, this movie, it makes you think, and just the one thing I wanted to bring up is, like, the idea that Susie isn't just your American average girl going to a dance school. She's actually one of the 3 mothers reincarnated, basically. And she figures this out. It doesn't say when she figures this out, but she figures it out, and then she pretty much takes over the coven. And that's what happens at the ending. That's like, oh my god, it just blows your frontal cortex like no other.
And I didn't catch that.
No, I didn't.
Let's be honest. Oh, so that's what happened.
Yeah, I didn't catch it at all, honestly, until the second viewing, and that blew me away. I was just like, wow. But yeah, it was. The movie was a lot of fun because it made me think, and when I wasn't necessarily ready for that, and it made me, try to figure it out. It just like the first movie. It stuck in my head, and I had to watch it again. I wasn't so judgmental on this one at first, though. And I think it was because I was so jarred. I was just like, what's going on? And then, so I had to go and figure it out. Where the first time around, I was just like, that sucked.
I am really surprised to hear you say that about Suspiria.
Well, that was just my first, because, it was a slow build for me, in a sense that I had to work at becoming a fan of it, and that was me trying to figure out what the hell this thing was. Now,
I do remember back in 2000 and must have been 8. My then boyfriend, his best friend, and I had similar movie tastes, and we decided we were going to show Brad Suspiria, and Ross and I, just loved the movie, and Brad was just kind of speechless and just not not like in a good way.
He's like, "What the hell am I watching?"
What are you guys talking about? What is this? So, I don't think it's unusual, your reaction. I think this might be an acquired taste for a lot of people.
Yeah,
it might have been for me too. I don't know. I saw it for the first time so long ago.
Yeah.
I think I liked it. Right.
There's one more thing I wanted to bring up, and that's the soundtrack, the music. One thing that pulled me in was the music, because it's done by Radiohead's Thom Yorke. He's the singer for Radiohead. And that's the stuff he came up with for this movie. A lot of people are about, because it's not Goblin who did the original. You know what I mean? The original soundtrack. And there's differences, obviously. Like the Goblin soundtrack is very, it's very jarring. It makes you feel unsettled, especially the first music, the opening music. It's just like, it's like almost assaulting you, where Thom Yorke's music is more melancholic and haunted, and I've always gravitated more towards the melancholic and haunted type music. I mean, that's why I love doom metal so much. But yeah,
doom metal. I've heard that before.
But I'm probably biased because I like Radiohead a lot. I've always been a fan of theirs since like 1995. I've always listened to them. So, final thoughts. What do you give this movie, Michael?
I'm giving it a provisional 3 stars. Because I'm going to watch it again. I have a feeling that rating is going to go up to 4 Dweller heads. But for right now, it's sitting at 3.
All right.
And I'm anxiously awaiting a second viewing. So is that a negative that
no,
both of us needed a second viewing? Or is it a good thing that a movie inspires you to watch again?
I think that's a good thing. Honestly, it's not good for your own market, because people want instant gratification, right? They don't want to think. Just like me, when I went into the first film and the second one, for some reason I wasn't thinking that I had to think, and I did. But the type of person I am, if there's something I caught unconsciously and I had to figure it out for myself. And, that's where it works for my type of personality. But it's not, this movie is definitely not for everyone. This movie's going to turn off a lot of people. Both of them.
It's not. Yeah. Well, that's true. In kind of different ways.
Yeah. So, they're very different films, and yet they're the same thing. I mean, the basic concept is an American young woman, goes to dance school that happens to be run by a coven of witches. That's the basic premise for both, and yet they're both very different. So my final thoughts is very well done. It's not a perfect movie. Like the things I mentioned, it moves a little bit too slow, and the ending, that one part at the ending that just bothered me. I love the ending. I absolutely love the ending. There's just that one part in the ending that just... Ugh. And it was very well acted, especially by Tilda Swinton, doing 3 spots and playing an old man. My God, that was awesome.
And what I had in my notes was, why did the old guy sound like a woman?
Yeah, well, now you know.
Now I know.
So I'm giving this one 5 stars. I absolutely love this film. Yeah, it's a new favorite.
Wow.
Yeah, it's right up there with Hereditary, and for good reason. For good reason.
I do think that undoubtedly, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, undoubtedly this is a better remake than what I'm sure most people thought it was going to be. It's not like when Martyrs was remade and just became garbage. You know,
Yeah.
so many of the remakes. You know, Last House on the Left just takes the piss right out of the original. This one is almost a companion piece. It's like neither a replacement nor, you know, yeah.
Actually, after watching it the second time, I was looking into the film a bit, just reading up on it and whatnot. And the director, Luca, he said that this isn't so much a remake as it is more like a cover song. And so he's basically saying, like, this is just his version of that song. And I found that a very interesting quote. Yeah. Now, before we go on this, I pulled up some fun trivia because there's some interesting things going on in this film that I noticed the second time around, but was completely oblivious in the first round. I got these pieces of trivia from IMDb as well, so some of them might not be, actually there's not very many here, so I'm pretty sure, well, this first one is definitely true. Jessica Harper, she played Susie, the main character in the original Suspiria, which was 1977, and she appears in this new film as Dr. Klemperer's wife. Now, there's a scene where he sees her and she kind of leads him somewhere, and she, in the storyline, she was lost during World War II to Nazi Germany. Basically, she got taken away, and so that was kind of a weird, sort of touching moment I found. Let me see, what one is this here? Okay, this goes back to my point on feminism, or this movie being somewhat feminist. Tilda Swinton's performance as Dr. Josef Klemperer came about when both Swinton and the director Luca thought that in a movie centering on women, it felt right to have a woman also play the principal male character. During filming, and this is the interesting part, I don't know if it's true because it's on IMDb, right? Anybody could edit this, but during filming, only a few cast members and virtually none of the extras knew that it was really Swinton in heavy makeup. They purposefully credited it, and if you look at the credits, it's that part is credited by a German actor called Lutz Ebersdorf, and so they hid this from everyone except for maybe a chosen few, and so I found that very fascinating.
I like that,
but it's cool. So convincing. I had no idea, honestly.
I didn't either. It does not look like Tilda Swinton, made up as a man.
Until you know, and then you're like, oh, and you can see it then. You can see it.
The voice was definitely feminine, though, because that got me.
She's playing the old raspy voice of a really old man, but it works. And
see, because I thought that I missed something, like there was some kind of a weird reincarnation scene, and he was supposed to be like one of the witches got in him. So I thought I had missed something about that. So that's one of the reasons why I had trouble focusing, because I was trying to puzzle through that.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, I wish I had known that, because it would have saved me some grief.
Yeah. This next one I found interesting, and I can see why, considering all the intestines and whatnot that are in this film. In an interview with Elle magazine, actress Dakota Johnson revealed that the intensity of the shoot had fucked her up so much that she had to go get therapy.
Oh.
It's just like, I didn't know, I wasn't expecting that.
Take that, 50 Shades girl.
And my last little bit of trivia here, there's a body count in this film of 14. 14.
Oh.
Which is interesting, because if you're watching this film from the beginning to the middle, you're going to be like, where the fuck is this body count?
Wait for it.
Wait for it. For 2.5 hours, just wait for it. There it is. Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to round out the show.
Wonderful.
All right, so that was a pretty good show, I think.
I loved the good movie discussion, and boy, I liked meeting our guest.
Yeah,
she was great.
Doungjai Gam, she's an up and comer for sure. Her collection is just it's mind blowing. I as I said, I'm pretty sure I said this in the interview. I read it in one sitting, one night during a slow night at work, and I like contacted her the next day. I was like, "Man, would you be willing to be on the show? Because this collection is so awesome."
Nice. I know how that feels. That happened to me and Todd Rigney with Found when I first watched that, and then I had to get the book. And...
Yeah, which you can find in our backlog.
I hope that's still there. My one solo interview.
It should be there. I don't know, because I found that iTunes is eating up our... they only gave us like up to 100 episodes. So like episodes 1 to... I don't know what it would be now. I guess 11 are gone.
Gone forever.
So I don't know why... Cause
like tears in the rain.
Yeah. I thought the cutoff limit was 300 episodes, but I guess I was wrong. Maybe it's because we're not as big as some others. I don't know. But I might try to figure out a way to fix that. But I think those episodes are gone for good, so that's okay, I guess. I mean, they were our first...
No, it's not.
No, man, those episodes are completely different to what we're doing today.
Well, it includes my first appearance on the show. Boy, am I ever being selfish. My first solo interview and my Blood Vengeance interview. That's all I care about.
Well, I'm pretty sure the Blood Vengeance... the Blood Vengeance interview is definitely gone. I can't find that anywhere.
Okay.
And but your interview with the Found author, I'm pretty sure it's still there. I can't remember what episode it is. But anyways, I'll look into that. And you should probably download it and keep it somewhere safe.
Yeah, I should. Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you guys want to get a hold of us, it's really easy to do. We're everywhere on the internet. You can find us on Facebook. We have both a group and a page you can like. And both Michael and I are there too, with accounts. You can email us at darknessdwellspodcast @mail.com. And, if you're going to email us, why not give us a voice message? I would love to play anyone's voice message on the show if you guys want to do that. And you can also find us on Twitter. The handle for that is @darkdweller74. And we have a website where we're hosted, basically. And that is wheredarknessdwells.com. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Please reach out to us. We like comments, as you heard at the beginning of the episode. And we will see you again next time.
Stay dark, my friends.
Stay dark indeed.